Greetings, welcome to day 50. Day 50, dang. That's we're halfway there to 100. Getting up there. Welcome. projectDIG is a 2D multiplayer automation survival sandbox game that I am developing here entirely on Twitch and uploading all the VODs to YouTube. I'm making a custom game engine here in C++. And using an entity component system and many libraries you see here. We just finished implementing the most basic network multiplayer support possible. We have it so that we can have a server and a client, and the server and the client can actually communicate and send data to one another. And yeah, that's all it does. We made it so we could like test it out, send a packet from the client to the server. Today I think we're going to be taking a break from the multiplayer stuff and working on just other things. I don't know exactly. I have like one or two ideas. But I don't know completely. It's kind of tricky for various reasons. Yeah. So let's see here. Roadmap. Yeah, I was looking into like doing the more support for the multiplayer in the game engine, but I need to just do a lot more research. I think I did like probably 2 or 3 hours of like kind of searching around, reading. Maybe it was more like 2. Just trying to get different ideas on how I could possibly do this. Entity component system multiplayer, and how best that, like, how can I make that work? So I want to just do some more thinking about it and reading up. Hey, Cooler, what's up? So yeah, we'll come back to it later. So in the meantime, I was thinking, we can do some miscellaneous stuff. Maybe we should do some unit tests. I have not written any unit tests for like the last 20 days or so. So that's starting to become a little concerning to me. I don't know if anything we have written actually needs to be unit tested. It's kind of tricky because a lot of it's like I don't know. So what have we done? We did spine. We did this multiplayer thing. We did the other animations. Maybe we could do something with the animations. Maybe, I don't know. It's like components obviously don't need to be unit tested. I guess we could unit test a system, but that's kind of tricky. I'm not sure exactly. If we came up with a very like well-defined system, or like a precise definition of what the system is doing and that is it, then we could write a unit test for it. But right now the unit tests are very variable. I don't know what they're going to look like. Sorry, not the unit test, the systems. We could come up with, I kept saying unit test, sorry. I need to drink more coffee. We could come up with a good definition for exactly what a system is, then we could write unit tests for it. Otherwise, I think we should hold off on that for now. I don't know what the systems are going to be like exactly. That's also one of the reasons why I think it's difficult to write some like more higher level netcode, is because I don't know what the systems are going to be like yet. Trying to figure all that stuff out. So I don't know if unit tests are needed right now. Something to think about. I was thinking we could look into K-hash or Google Dint maps for the hash maps, and just maybe even other solutions like our own vector, or like using someone else's vector. I don't know how needed or necessary another vector class is, but yeah, vectors, hash maps, sets, that stuff. I think it might be worth spending some time figuring that out now. That's not what I want. I have not actually decided on what I would like to use. I know there have been, okay, so this is somewhat, yeah. So stuff like this is nice. So what the like problem challenges here is that the standard library containers are notoriously bad because they're very generalized, and I don't know all of the details, but it's just like what I've been told and what we can see here in the benchmarks is that they're just not good. So I wanted to look at replacing them. Dang, that Google Dents map is killing it. So yeah, you can see here Google Dents map is 0.3 load factor. Standard unordered map is 0.8 load factor. So this is more than twice as fast. And then here, this is 0.36 again. Standard library is 0.18, so it's the same. Random full inserts with reserve, 0.36. Standard library is 0.94. Random full deletes. Dang. Oh wait, unknown load factor. Oh, I guess they can't have that. That's 0.085. Standard library is 0.01. 0.1. Dang. That's like more than 10 times as fast. Okay, maybe I was looking at the wrong thing. This is 0.18. This is 0.6. Yeah, maybe I was looking at the wrong thing there. Alka with the raid. Heyo. What's up, guys? Welcome, welcome. Okay, I hope you had a good stream. Thanks for the host or the raid. Yeah, welcome, guys. My name is Jason, and I am developing a 2D multiplayer automation survival sandbox game here. And we're creating a custom game engine. I'm currently looking at some solutions to replace the standard library containers with something else, just something. How's the game dev going? It's good, it's good. Yeah, just trying to make some progress here. Okay, here's a dig, an engine. If you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. Yeah. So yeah, we're just looking at some other solutions. I had looked at this Google dense map stuff before, and it looks good. So that's what I was kind of thinking we'd go with. But we're just, yeah, looking at the benchmarks and everything. I guess I can show off really quick here what we have so far. Let me just compile it. Okay, so yeah, we have like a UI. These are spine animations, which is pretty cool. Create little entities. So we have a custom entity component system. And yeah, that's kind of it, honestly. We've been working on it. Today's day 50, so we've been working on it for just shy of 2 months. Looks like a neat foundation. Thanks. Spline animations are very nice. Yeah, they're very cool. So this is the debug mode, and we can see we're running at 120 frames per second, which is not that great considering how little we are actually doing here. So I was wanting to try to clean that up with the containers. Getting some new containers. If we switch over to release mode, it's actually like over 1,000 FPS because the standard library containers are notoriously bad for debug mode, especially. Yeah, so let's see if we can come up with something here. So you're already working on optimization? Kind of not really. It's like, so this is something I've been kind of wanting to look at for a while. The reason why I decided to do it now is because I kind of don't know what to do, and I thought, hey, this is something that would be good to get in sooner than later. One thing I was thinking of doing is making it so I just have a hash map, like do a type def or using hash map vector set, you know, and so that way I can easily change what solution we are using. Yeah, so definitely doing that. So if we do a search for like standard unordered map, we're going to find that we're using in maybe like, oh wait, let's actually go ahead and close out the game. Hey, Geek Pirate, how's it going, man? What's up? What's up? Hope you're doing well. Thanks. Yeah, Cooler made that stream logo. It's awesome like that. Okay, let's do that search again. So you can see we're already using that in like, I don't know, maybe a dozen places or something. Matching file, matching lines 26, so 2 dozen. So yeah, I wanted to replace those. And I think we might have like 1 or 2 sets that we're using. I wonder about vectors, if you can actually get any speed up with vectors. I imagine not really, because that's just a contiguous array of, or like it's contiguous memory and we're just indexing into it, and so I don't think you can really get better ones for that. But yeah, this Google Dense map just like is owning everything. Oh, here's the first place, random full reads after deleting half. It's not in first here. Thing that Q hash sucks at that. Random full iteration. Okay, so now it's not quite so good. Yeah, you can kind of see like that's usually how, from my understanding, that's typically how these hash maps are. It's like they'll be really good at one thing, but then they'll kind of suck at something else. There's always trade-offs. That's why like Google actually has a dense hash map as well as a sparse map. I've been up all night, so I'm gonna get some sleep. Hey Elka, have a good one. Sleep well. Thanks again for the raid. Green misses. Yeah. Strings. Dang, this has a lot of stuff. Analysis. TSL sparse map beats Google sparse hash map in every speed test for the price of a little memory increase. I guess this person is like promoting their TSL. I don't see the Google sparse hash map. Scotch map. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever use strings as a key. We should always be doing a hash map. Or sorry, a hash string for that. Interesting. Yeah, this is one thing that is challenging to do on stream. Is like I feel like I should read into this a lot more, honestly, because there are a lot of decisions to make with this stuff. So this is the sparse hash Google stuff. Okay, yeah. So like, sometimes I want to use a sparse hash map. Sometimes I want to use a dense one. I need to read into like, when are you wanting to make those decisions? You know what are the exact trade-offs? I think they kind of talk about it here. Bars. Come back to our roadmap. Maybe we can look at something else. I have this growing list of things I need to just like do a bunch of research on. I mean, that's probably only like half an hour to an hour of like reading, but it's something I feel like I should do before I really make a decision. In the past, I've just always used the standard library solution, which is like very generalized, which is why it's like it's good for everything, and simultaneously it's bad for everything because it doesn't excel in one thing. It just is like it's kind of the middleman, or it's like in the middle of everything. But like my understanding is that if you're doing something particular, like if you have a lot of inserts at once, and then you don't really insert much after that, and you're just doing tons of lookups throughout like the rest of the game or whatever, then you would want to use something that's really fast at lookups. It's like, yeah, it's bad at doing inserts, but who cares? You only do that once, and we're not like inserting things a lot into it after that. So let's find, that a good solution for that. And then there might be other times where we're constantly inserting and removing things, and we want to make sure that it's good at the insertion, and we don't really do lookups that often. I love making decisions. I like making decisions, but it's kind of tricky. Maybe what we can do for it right now is kind of it seems like there's two type of solution. There's usually like a dense hash map versus a sparse one. Maybe I could just dense hash map versus sparse hash map. Maybe we could like go halfway here with this. Maybe. Yeah. Okay, maybe not. John Carmack said it best. When in doubt, implement it both ways. Yeah, that's definitely a decent way to go about doing things. Hey, the gel. Stop. Yeah, that's something that I think we could do. Yeah, it's just like it's all, and that's something I think I should be reading more about. Is it really comes down to the data? This is kind of data-oriented design, where we are looking at how are we using this data? Are we doing lots of inserts and little lookups, or are we doing lots of lookups and little inserts, or whatever? Or like, do we care about the memory size here or not? And I think we really need to understand how the data is being used in each case. Are you using ECS now? Yes, we are. if you go to the YouTube channel, I have most of the VODs up and also have many recaps. I think 3 now. And the first recap goes over how the entity component system works. So you can check that out. Yeah, and I'm going to upload a bunch of VODs from like the last few days. I've kind of been slacking. Excuse me. Okay, so I think I need to like maybe I need to make a new group here. Let's do that. Research. Let's do that. And move that over here, I think. So I'm gonna research multiplayer. And I actually kind of need to research that stuff too. It's like I need, okay. Actually, I need to research many things here. Yeah. What if I should almost like put that over here and then no stage. Maybe we could do it like this. So maybe we could do like, we need to research it, we need to, then I can queue it and like I can actually work on it and then prototype it, and then if we actually finish it, which like nothing is really finished. Prototyped is kind of more like, hey, yeah, we got something kind of working, but we're going to need to do more work. Yeah, you've been busy. Yeah, trying. Yeah, we still have a lot of stuff to do. So another possibility that we could look at today is scripting support. Maybe we could just like talk about that and look at it. Today's kind of a weird day because I need a lot of the stuff I was working on or kind of was planning I need to work on. I need to do research on, and that's I don't know. There are some things that I have decided are boring on stream, and reading a bunch of articles and trying to figure things out well, it's not only boring, but it's also difficult for me to do. But yeah, maybe we can talk about scripting support and kind of start figuring that out, because that's, I would say, probably the biggest question mark that remains for the entire game engine. Hey, codename Dinah, what's up? Welcome. Do you have a monitor? I have 2 monitors. Hey, Sullivan, how's it going? Yeah, so let's talk about scripting support and what we can do for that. So, let's see here. What would be the best way? I think we can just open this up and kind of talk about like, what are the goals with it? You need at least 3. Yeah, my desk, it just wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. Can you please help? 6 minimum. Can you please help? Does the overdrive increase input lag? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. You're doing export scripts in SQL today, so that's fun. Oh, I'm sure. Okay, so scripting support. I'm thinking about using Lua, specifically Sol 3 for Lua. But first, let's write out, like, what are the goals here and everything. So Sol, here's a link. Does overdrive increase input lag? Yeah, I don't know what that means, sorry. It sounds like Geek Pirate does. Um, so yeah, I was thinking about using Lua and Sol. So Lua is a scripting language. Wait, that's not it. Where's Lua.org? I was just looking for like basic course notes, reference manual. I guess we could look at that. I don't know. Let's just look for a Lua code example. Here we go. Here's some Lua code. So Lua is a scripting language. That means that it's compiled at runtime, and it's ran through an interpreter, which means that we can change the code without having to compile it, and like through like Visual Studio compiler or whatever. So means that we could, if we ever wanted to, have scripting support or modding support, and it also means that I can change things potentially at while the game is running and have it be hot loaded. So that's pretty cool. I know it's possible to do hot reloading using a DLL. I don't know exactly how to do that because I've never done it before, but I know people have told me and I have seen stuff on that. But I don't know if that's really something I want to do. It was nice, except that array start at 1, yeah, and a few other things. Built-in system for hot reloads in my language I'm working on. That'd be pretty cool. It's tricky. Hot reloading is tricky because if you have any data laying around, it's like suddenly you need some way to like migrate that data over to the new code. It helps if you have a very clean separation of data and logic, because the majority of the time you are wanting to change the logic, but you don't really care about the data. Like like usually you're like, okay, here's all the data that these components are going to have or whatever. Now let's work on this logic. Oh wait, that logic isn't right. Let's change this. Oh, that's still not right. Let's change the logic again. And it's almost there. Change it another time. Okay, great. That's awesome. And that's much better to go back and forth like that than to have to, okay, oh, that didn't work, let's shut down, change the code, recompile, launch it back up, get back to the state where we were at, where we're testing the thing, try it out, still not right, redo it again. It's like, if you already have everything set up, just try to reduce that overhead of iterating on the code, the logic, as much as you can. There's also So yeah, that's like one goal here is, let's see if I can, so like scripting support, what am I wanting to say, like goals or objectives? I don't know, something like that. One is that turn into bullet list. Open as a page. Let's do that. Oh, didn't want to do that exactly. Okay, here we go. Just so we have it all focused. It's a compile language. Nice. Cool. Yeah, you're more than welcome to share a link. So one objective is potential modding support in the future. I don't really want to invest a lot of time upfront trying to add in modding support. So this is kind of like a minor thing. I don't know, minor objectives and goals maybe. Yeah, this is kind of minor. Maybe I should put that at the front. What else? Hot reloading. This is kind of like, I don't know if I should say easy hot reloading, but this is one of the main reasons I want to use a scripting language is hot reloading. And then another one is just hot reloading, and this is kind of the same, which is avoiding recompiling. A lot of these all go together. I think another like objective or goal with this is yeah, and they're all kind of clumped together, I guess, which is I would say this is another major reason is faster iteration, like code iteration. It's just like being able to write the code faster. Scripting languages, generally, they're, I would say, like more dense in that you can have a single line of code that does many things, whereas with a like C++, it takes 3-4 times as many lines of code to write the same thing in like Python. So why Lua over other potential scripting languages? Here we go. We kind of looked at some stuff here. I thought I did. Okay, here we go. So we looked at Lua, AngelScript, Squirrel, Wren, Moonsharp, Python. Well, I kind of already looked at Python. Moonsharp is, I think it's Lua. Yeah, it's Lua for C#. So we kind of, yeah. We decided against C#, so we decided against Moonsharp. I looked at Wren. It looks cool, but the main reason that I want to go with Lua, I think, is just that it's the well-trodden path. And so it's like I don't really like the syntax as much as some other languages, but it's used in many AAA games and console games. and lots of people know it, so it means that if we did do modding support, or if I ever decided to hire someone, they're much more likely to be familiar with Lua than they would. Wait, you had Jai in your list? The language will release in 100 years. Well, apparently some developers already have it. And yeah, it was kind of more of like, hey, this actually a consideration? It wasn't like, oh yeah, should we use that? I don't know if you that. So it wasn't like, hey, let's put this on our list to decide if we're going to use it, but more of, hey, let's put this on our list to see if it's even a possibility for us to use it. But yeah, I know some developers have it. I vaguely know John Blow. I've met him a few times. I considered reaching out to him and seeing if he would let me get early access to Jai, but I decided against that. Partly because of the same reason I'm saying why I want to use Lua, because I want to use something a little bit more commonly used, or actually much more commonly used, because I feel like I have a lot of learning to do as far as game development goes and programming, and it's very helpful to be doing something that other people have already done and they've asked questions on, and you can find resources online. Whereas it like with Jai, I'd be pretty much by myself. John Blow would not want me asking him questions all the time. Like, I would need to be able to figure that stuff out. So yeah, I'm not probably the best candidate for early access for Jai. And it's kind of the same thing with some other things like Rin. And like, yeah, maybe this is cool. I know some people are like, this is actively being developed, which is great. But if there were problems with it, or if it didn't work for consoles for some reason, and I needed to add in console support or whatever, like I would need to do that, and I need to be able to figure it out. And like maybe for something like the scripting language, I probably could, but do I actually want to spend the time doing that? Lua, Go, JS, Rust, Python, Ruby. Yeah, I don't want to use JavaScript. Another reason why, so like, I guess maybe I should write here, why Lua. So first off, it's just most commonly used. Lots of examples. Yeah, which I guess is like a host of its own thing. It's like it's most commonly used, so it's like maybe proven to work on console, or like proven to be very portable. Potential modders or future devs would be more likely to know it. Another reason is that it's the fastest in the land. So the questions like, why would I not want to use Lua? It's pretty much just I don't really like the syntax that much. It does a few weird things, and that's mostly it. Is it difficult to connect all these languages? I mean, with C++, not really. Yeah, not really. By the way, welcome everyone who has joined. Thank you for joining and being interested in what I'm working on. For anyone new, my name is Jason, and we are creating this 2D multiplayer automation survival sandbox game, projectDIG, and I'm doing all the development here on stream and uploading the VODs to YouTube along with some recap videos, so you can easily follow along, catch up. YouTube engine. There's some links and information. Oh wait, forgot the dig. The dig. Yeah. So we're looking at kind of the scripting support, what we might want to do for it, how we would go about implementing it. If you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. So yeah, this is why Lua, yeah, and the only reason why not is, like I said, doesn't have the best syntax. It has some weird things like the tables, everything uses tables, which is weird, and another weird thing to me is, you know, the whole indexing by one. I think there's like a few other quirks that I kind of ran into while using it earlier in the year. Yeah. So, let me pull, where's that, scripting support, here we go, Sol 2. So, it's actually now Sol 3, or as he calls it, like, Sol 2 3.0. So, Sol is a C++ binding library to Lua, so you can easily connect the two. So it supports all Lua versions up to 5.1 and LuaJIT 2.x included. Sol aims to be easy to use and easy to add to a project. The library's header only for easy integration with projects. That's cool, I guess. So here's just some examples. You can create a Lua state and everything. So, what would we want to use the scripting language for? I think we... A2H strike. Is it time to add a scripting language? Yeah, I'm kind of looking at that. I don't know if I'm actually going to implement it today or what. But yeah, looking at it. I was wondering if I added some notes in here. I don't know if I did. Well, I guess we're doing it now. Thought I did, but I guess not. So what are we wanting to use it for? What are we going to use the scripting for? One thing I would really like to use it for is the UI. I think that's like number one. So what did you decide about the license for the Korea game engine? Oh, sorry, not Korea. For project engine? projectDIG engine? Jeez. English? Dig. Yeah, so yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, you can get access to the source code through my Patreon. Here. And yeah, so I say here it's MIT licensed to answer your question. It's on GitLab, and it's only going to contain the like actual game engine code, and all of the gameplay logic, like very gameplay specific stuff, is going to be separate and not part of. Oh, this is the robot one. That's the old one. I decided to lower the price so more people could get access to it. So yeah, the right now you can get access to all the game engine stuff through MIT license here on Patreon. Gameplay stuff will not be available at first, and I have it as a goal. Yeah, it's $1,000 goal, which is possible. I think, maybe in like a year or something, maybe we could reach that. I was going to make it so that everyone gets access to gets access to the engine. So I just open it up to everyone, and then if you're a robot, that would make it so you could get access to the gameplay logic, but it would be under a restrictive license. So you couldn't actually use it for a commercial game. And that's just because, I don't want people taking exactly what I'm making and trying to release it or whatever. I feel like that's a pretty good compromise and solution to all of this. If you guys have any feedback or anything about all of that, my Patreon or anything, I also welcome it. I'm not really heard much about what people think of it, so yeah. So coming back to the scripting stuff. So yeah, well actually before we get back to that, so what that means, like what is the game engine including? That's like the entity component system, it's the rendering, it's everything I've worked on so far. The scheduler, serialization, fmod support, multiplayer, profiling, getting all like everything I've been working on. You can actually come to this page if you go to dig.siegegames.com, and then you can get to the roadmap through here, and you can see everything marked with engine system. That's going to be in the game engine and be MIT license, and anything that's marked with gameplay system probably will be for the actual gameplay. I think that's how it's going to work. There might be some things that I'll change around where it will end up being an engine system. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like maybe character movement might be part of the engine. Yeah, there are some things that are like more generalized that I could see, like a cellular automata system. I could see that being useful for other games. But stuff like researching or viruses or equipment. Well, even equipment, I could see maybe like kind of some of the equipment system. Yeah, maybe even like inventory could possibly be. Oh, I forgot about the UI. The UI is part of the core engine. Mechanical wiring, that stuff, power, that stuff is definitely gameplay systems, operation programming. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, like kind of, I don't know if I would ever make it so that it's open source in the sense of I'm accepting pull requests. Maybe for the core game engine, I'm not sure. But right now, like you could, if you get access to it, you can um just like you can follow along with the stream here, and then also you can use it for your own project, play around with it, do whatever. So anyways, coming back to this. What are we wanting to use the scripting for? The user interface, definitely. The content, I don't know what to call it. It's like the content entities. I guess prefab. We call them prefabs here. Prefab. Definitely. I don't know what I want to call it. Just, I guess prefabs. It's like, in Korea we have. Here's Korea. We have CE files like this. So we have this is a content entity .ce file. So I'm thinking of doing something similar. Maybe do like a PE or something, or prefab. I don't know what we want to call it. Something, a prefab file that defines everything here. And so we can say, oh yeah, this prefab is an item, and that sets it up in a specific way so we can have the various components and data initialized on it. It has a bunch of defaults. Like an item means that it's an entity or it's prefab with at least the item component and maybe some other basic things. Like it has a render component and maybe it has a transform component as well. Maybe not. Maybe we don't need a transform component on an item specifically. Maybe only if it's placed in the world, then we add a transform component. But we can also say it's craftable, it has a crafting component, and it's placeable, it has a placement component, like you can place it in the world and that contains data on how it's placed. And so I actually really liked what I did for Korea. This was probably one of the best things that I did for Korea's design. Like, I think this is very readable and it's nice. And it also allows me to be able to condense things down whenever I see that there's some pattern. So we can take a look at like sword files, and we can see here's a bunch of sword files. I just made a I call this templating for like prefabs. So I just made a sword template because all swords are basically the same. If we look at them, like they always have a name, they always have an attack power, they always have like a level which is for like the level required to equip it as well as the level for crafting it. And the materials used to craft it and any attributes that are on it, and then also that means that it's always an item. So it has an item component, it's always renderable, it always has an equipment component. and so on. And so like I'm able to condense all of that data down, and it uses, it always, for the equipment component, we know it always goes in your like hand slot, and for crafting it's always in the like crafting sword category. So we're able to kind of condense it down significantly and avoid repeating ourselves. Oops. If I go to item.py, we can find the sword, which is a weapon. If you keep ECS entirely on Lua's side, it might be even faster than switching between C++ and Lua. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm inclined to say probably not, but I mean, we can look at it. We'll see what we're actually wanting to put it all in. I don't think I want to move my ECS over to Lua though. So yeah, this is the sword, so you can see all of the data that it has. So it actually, oh, this isn't even used anymore, huh? Yeah. So it sets up a bunch of default information. And a weapon has a lot of default information as well. We can say it is a weapon, which gives it a weapon component that has this information. So yeah, I really like this templating system. I'd like to come up with something kind of similar for projectDIG. I don't know exactly what I want to do with that yet. So what this would be is we're setting up the prefab information. So we have the prefabs or archetypes. So that's all the data, like, you probably have figured out swords, trees, monsters, whatever we have in the game, that is going to be backed up by some prefab data. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, like, or what I'm saying I want to have be defined within Lua, just so that way we can very quickly add in new prefab types. So yeah, prefabs, templates, yes please. What else might what else might we want to use this for? I guess some gameplay logic, maybe. I don't think we want to put any. That's one thing I'm not sure about, is do we actually want to put any gameplay logic in there? I'm inclined to say no. Maybe we can support some basic callbacks for stuff. And that's where things get a little tricky, because let's see here. I definitely use callbacks for stuff. So let's say that you want to, I mean, we can look at lots of examples in Korea. Thinking. Let's just say that we want to make it so that you can interact with items. So we have maybe an interactable component, or for Korea, what I did was I made a event component, and it could have any event associated with it, such as an interact event, or maybe like um, an on open event or on use or whatever. And so then we could, if we wanted to interact with an item, you would just check to see if it has an interact event, and if it does, then we could invoke it, and whatever callbacks are set up to handle that interact event, they would be called. So that's super useful for things like, let's say we want to implement a door. And whenever you interact with a door, and I think I have a door in here. Door, there we go. I ended up making enough doors that I was like, let's make a template for doors because they're all the same. So if you interact with a door, so here we set up the interact, if it's interactable, then I ended up making it so it has a close and an open event as well. And so if you interact with the door and it's currently closed, it opens it. And if it's currently open, it closes it. So it just kind of toggles its state basically. And if you open up a door, it will play the door animation. And if it's opening it, it will deactivate the physics component. So that way, or the collision. So that way you're not colliding with it, meaning you can pass through it. And also it plays a sound, some door creaking or something like that. And so that's just like the super basic stuff, but maybe, there are some places where we actually want to handle the door opening elsewhere. Like, I think in dungeons, it will, whenever you open up a door, it does something. I forget what. I think we ended up doing. Oh, that's right. That's what I did. No, it was that. It was that there are some other things that can call or invoke the open, such as here we go, like the door mechanical receive. So if you hook up a switch to it, and it's a mechanical door, as meaning like you can actually hook up a switch, and then you flip a switch, it will toggle if it's open or closed, and that calls the open or close events. And so being able to do like these callback functions are really just calling or performing these, which is playing a sound or activating or deactivating an entity. And that's very useful. Hey, Mind Raids, what's up? Thanks for the raid. How's it going? So I think that I would like to do this. One idea that I had for it, so like, yeah, one idea I had is that at the end or beginning or at some specific point in our frame, we will say, let's lock all components and allow Lua to, like, all Lua components or whatever to do their thing. And so we can have these callbacks be triggered. That means that I'll probably need to queue up some stuff, like events. Maybe that's what we need to do. It's kind of like, I think there are many systems that will do this. I know Steam actually does this with their callbacks. So once per frame, you call the Steam API run callbacks, and that will actually run all of the callbacks. And so maybe we could have like Lua callbacks. And so at some specific point, we say run all of the Lua callbacks. And so we queue them up during the frame. We'll have all of these different systems running through our scheduler. We're animating the components. We're doing physics stuff. We're doing physics as in like moving and collision. We're doing cellular automata where we're actually having the water flow and move, or fire spreading. there'll be lots of other systems, you know, any AI systems or trees growing or other plants, etc. Just simulating stuff, mechanical updating, you know, moving power or whatever. And any of those could potentially be feeding or like queuing up Lua callbacks. Like maybe there's one system that handles input, and if you press the interact key, it will queue up the interact Lua callback for whatever entity you interacted with. And so then, yeah, at some point we will actually go through and run through all these callbacks and lock all of the components. So that way, you know, well, I don't know if we really need to lock them. What I mean, whenever I say locking, it's like ensuring that no one else is doing anything. So if our scheduler is running, maybe that just means that we do it after the scheduler runs, because the scheduler will have a thread pool that is trying to parallelize all of the different systems as well as it can based off of what components they're reading and writing. And so if we had this as a system in the scheduler, the Lua callback thing, we would want to block on everything. Like I said, maybe we'll just make it be outside of it afterwards, where we do it on the main thread and we just say, okay, run this. And then it will have access to all of the components and everything. One nice thing about this is that exposing our components is going to be really easy, because they are just structures. I don't have to worry about exposing a bunch of functions. You know, if we go over to Kriya, we take a look at that. Here's our craft component. Craft component's actually really simple, but still, look at all of the stuff that we have to expose. This is all, this expose interface function, this is all just to expose our craft component to Lua. Oh, sorry, to Python. Gonna go eat some dinner. Hey, enjoy. Yeah, so this is all just to expose the crafts component to Python. And the reason why there's so much of this is because we well, I guess this has a lot of data. This is maybe not even the best example, but there are some functions that we expose. There's, I'm sure, more. Like, I know our render component is kind of ridiculous. Render component. Here's our render component being exposed to Python. And so here, there's a lot of data for that. There are a number of functions that are being called or that we expose, so I wouldn't need to expose any of that stuff. Looks like you need some macro to generate the script linking code. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll need that. Because, well, I don't know. We're not going to have to do as much exposing for projectDIG as we did for Kriya. This is the Kriya game engine for anyone who didn't know. And my previous game, I hopefully learned a lot from that. I think so. So yeah, we're not going to have any functions to expose. All we are really needing to expose, I think, like what do we need to do to be able to change the state of the world? We have our components in here. We don't have very many components right now. We'll eventually have like probably a few dozen at least. But they just contain data. 90% of that, or probably more like 95% of, I'm hoping 95+% of our components are just going to be pods. There are a few exceptions, such as right now our spine component is not. I might change that in the future to make it a pod. It would be nice to be able to say 100% of them are pods. Um, that's plain old data structures. So we just have to make sure that this is exposed. One thing I might do, Morglod, is, and tell me if I'm saying your name wrong. Morg. Maybe I'll go with Morg. Is making it so that I have some sort of like what is that called again? Yeah, some macro here. I don't know exactly what I want to do. Introspection, where I can define these and then I can generate the code to expose the components. And also, maybe it would be nice to do something possibly for multiplayer, like saying, hey, this should be linked to the client. So this is like, I don't know, some net variable, net var or something. I don't know. Client var, or yeah, I don't know what I would want to call it. But maybe we would have that. Maybe we would also want to say, oh yeah, this is a Lua client var, and so that means like it's exposed. I don't know. I don't know what I want to do for that yet, but play around with that some. You may use void definitions just for meta info. Define field, field name, field type. Yeah. Then this scan all the files with it. Yep. Introspection, right? Yeah, I will look at that. I mean, I kind of know how to do that. It's more of a matter of like, how would that exactly work? We need to kind of better define this stuff. So I would say, yeah, user interface prefabs. Libclang is good for processing tag stuff. That's how it's done in UE. Okay, cool. Maybe I'll take a look at that. Is field UE. I don't know, just making a note for myself. Libclang. Just curious. Might probably roll my own, but I'm just curious to see what they do here. Why don't they have any examples? I guess you define your own tags. I was looking for an example of like how they do it. Hey, Wanted, what's up? I'll check it out later. I'll put a note here as well. Lib playing for tagging. Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing good though. Doing good. How about yourself, Wanted? Anyways, so yeah, besides user interface and prefabs, as I said, it would be nice to do some basic gameplay logic, mostly via callbacks, maybe entirely through callbacks. Kind of thinking that might be the best way to do it. Check out at the end. Oh, okay. I didn't see a first link. Being unproductive and tired. Nice. Sounds fantastic. Anytime I see someone who speaks English very well, and then they post something like a Russian link like this, I always get kind of jealous. Like, I know I am very fortunate to live in the States and speak English, but I think it's so cool that people know like multiple languages and can actually like, you know, read and write Russian and English, or Japanese and English, or German and English. Like, all Europe knows English as well as their native language, and maybe even another language on top of that. I think it's awesome. I wish that the States really pushed people to learn other Englishes or languages more. Englishes. Check out at the end. This right here. Filter node list by file. Next. Field decal. What language is this? Is this Python? Oh, this is Python. Okay. Got it. Gotcha. Cool. I always list programming languages when people ask for languages. That's cheating. Yeah, I'm thinking via callbacks. I think maybe that's what we want to do. Have you tried using Chrome's translate tool? Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really wanting to dig through that, but yes, I have. I mean, typically they have it at the top. Like, if I reload, it might, yeah, translate. Yeah. But I wasn't really digging through that too much right now. Because maybe I'll go up here and is it possible to edit Edit comment. Add that in there. Yeah, I was just looking at the code example. That's all. So your user interface, prefabs, and basic gameplay logic through callbacks. I think that's all we really would want it for. Are there any other things? I don't think so. So let's kind of just think about, like, dive a little bit deeper. I think mostly into the user interface. How would that work? I guess that would be through callbacks as well. So it's kind of the same thing, right? So we could have, like, if we look over here at our UI, let's actually just go into here. Let's look at, I don't even think we have, yeah, we have pretty much everything defined within our element. Here are the events. So the on show, on activate, and on secondary activate, that's like if you click on it, it's, you know, that calls the on activate event. So our event UI right now is just the element pointer. So what we might want to do in the future is change that, maybe make it so that we have access to, like, the world or the player. Like, that's one thing that we'll need to think about. I don't know exactly how we want to do that. So let's take a look at the Kriya code for our UI. Here's the equipment UI. So what I did is I made it so that the dialogue is actually defined in here. Yeah, this is a little tricky. Like, how do we set up this interface? Example, Lua calling C++, local button equals dig new button. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. It might be how we do things. Like actually constructing all of the objects inside of the script here. That's what I did for Kriya. So you can see, like, what I do here in the setup function, we have setup, like, you know, create stats, create gear section, whatever, and that will create a new section or a new element group, and then we can, like, add an item slot to the groups. Or down below, we might actually say something like, here's an element group and here's some labels. That's for the info, so it's just labels. For the stats, we actually will have some element groups with labels, and at some point in here, we have buttons. But I may have disabled them. I think I disabled them. This is for the prototype, so I changed a bunch of code. Yeah, it looks like I got rid of them. So that doesn't really work. If we go over to, like, our craft UI, that's, like, super complicated. But we do have buttons on that. Item group on activate. That's a label. Here's crafting cancel. So we create a text button. Here's a bunch of buttons. Yeah. So we might want to set it up like this. You can see there's a lot of code for everything. They're pretty much all callbacks. So how it's working is that we are setting up the elements for the UI here. And then we add in lots of callbacks. So we have like this onActivate crafting cancel, or onActivate for this craft button. It calls this thing, and we bind something to it. God, that is hard to read. Yeah, it's Lua. Sorry, Python. And I write my code very densely. It's not that hard. It's hard to read if I'm scrolling really fast, but like if you stop, it's not too bad. Like, oh, here's the create header. I don't know, maybe it's a little dense. Create subheader, subcategories. Here we go through all of those crafting categories, and we figure out, determine the maximum subcategories that the header, oh yeah, it's the length, okay, that the subheader needs to support. Subcategory elements, create category header. Yeah, maybe it's a little hard to read. But this is, so yeah, this is the Kriya code. Then using pipe and RPC, communicate between the script and components code. Yeah, maybe we won't do that. That sounds a little overkill. We don't need to. Like, yeah, so we could we could make UI files kind of like our CE files or our prefab files, where we load it, we run it, and it will like create some object or something that's our UI, and then it initializes all of the elements that are within that UI, and we then have all of the callbacks set up as well. So yeah, I guess let's look at our callbacks and see exactly what we do within those. So one of the things that we're able to kind of cheat with here is that we have, so this is an actual object, so maybe it's not cheating, but we have a lot of data here that's specifically for the UI. Like the ordering, icon material names, localized name. That's for craft data. Okay, that's the craft data. Yeah, to stuff, like we take all of the game data, like we iterate through all of the craftable entities or prefabs, and we say, okay, let's store that inside of this craft data, which has all of that information, and then maybe some more, like, yeah, the icon, which is probably coming from like the render component, or the name. I don't even know where we're storing the name. We don't have a name anywhere. That's a good point. We don't have names anywhere. I don't know where that should go. A lot of it's coming from the crafting. Some of this is stashing it. Like here are the materials. The crafting and create is kind of complex. Hence why this is so complicated. This is by far the most complicated UI. But yeah, let's look at what we're doing here inside of our callbacks. So I think pretty much anything that has a handle, def handle, is going to be a callback. The one thing I'm kind of wondering about is, like, do we ever get access to the player? I think so. And so that might be really important. I'm sure using the player is going to be really important for this stuff. Like, we want to show the player's inventory. Well, we need to get access to the player's components. We want to show the player's stats. We need to get access to the player's stats component. So that's actually a good point as well, is there are sometimes there are going to be callbacks that are triggering the UI directly, such as you click on a button or you hover over something, you select something with the controller, something along those lines. I think the controller has a lot because it can have multiple buttons. Whenever you have a mouse, usually you're only interacting with the UI through the mouse. Scroll wheel, I guess. That's probably not really something. Yeah, there are some things in here that I could probably move over to the C++ side. So I might try doing that. But yeah, let's keep looking at this. Player. Yeah, so maybe we want to somehow, like, perhaps whenever we are setting up the UI, we pass in or provide the entity ID of the player, so that way we can always request from the world the player component, or components, I should say. Which means we kind of need access to the world, or be able to get access to the world somehow. Maybe we pass it through the callbacks. You can see that on activate change quantity. In order to be able to change the world state at all, we need access to the world. UI craft button, which we can pass in. One thing I was kind of curious about is, like, are we doing anything else? I don't think so. Typically, this is just messing with the UI. Like, oh, you clicked on this button. That means we need to change the UI to look like this thing. Or there are sometimes, I'm looking. I guess it's kind of hard to tell because we do stuff like calculate quantities. Some of these are completely just stateless, like, or maybe you pass in data. Yeah, I guess they don't change anything in the world. They're just like, yeah, calculate the quantities, or there is in the server, right? Item location, client assist. Here we go. Show view, request, reserve, request. Maybe that's not what I wanted. Where do we, whenever we craft an item, trying to remember. Oh, we send, that's right. We send a message to the server. That's right. Hey, Steve Void, what's up? So maybe we need to expose the netcode. What would need to be exposed? Maybe I'll say what needs to be exposed. For commands. Okay, cool. That's kind of nice. What needs to be exposed? The world. I guess world components. Probably not our systems at all. That's one really nice thing about having those be completely separate. World components, netcode, audio. I guess it's really like being able to send packets. Maybe you receive as well. Send packets. Yeah, definitely audio. Did I miss something interesting? Nah. This might be mostly it. I guess particles. That's something that I ended up doing. That was kind of nice to have. World plus world components. I think we want to do world components. What else would we need? That might be it. Oh, and obviously the actual user interface. User interface. A lot of the stuff we've been working on. That's up there. Stuck on my game, how I need to structure my menus. Like, do I want a separate class for each menu screen? This is in C#, by the way. I don't need a kickstart now. How would I do this? I've written everything out so far. It kind of depends on how complicated your UI is, I would say, and how many menus you are going to have. Yeah. You would have to give more information for me to actually be able to give you good advice, I think. Sorry. That's just how it is. So yeah, let me open this back up. Kind of just continuing to look at like what are we going to actually need to provide to Lua or the scripting language. Modal dialogue. I think that's pretty much it. It's a lot. I mean, with this, we can do just about anything. We can change the state of the world through the world and world components. I don't know if we're going to do, if we will use the world components really, but maybe. Then we have the components, the user interface. Yeah, so components, we can change like anything at that point. Oh, we probably need prefabs, I'm thinking, most likely. I think we will need to expose the prefabs. Probably. Yeah, I think we will. The prefabs would be, let's say that we have our crafting UI and we want to be able to show all of the craftable components or all the items that have a craftable component. The best way to do that, I think, would just be to iterate through all of our prefabs. Find every prefab that has a craft component and add that to the list. Because, so for Korea, I have this concept of like a content entity, and systems could kind of store that. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do anything like that anymore. Doesn't really make sense. Maybe at some point, like if I'm wanting to query that stuff regularly, I could set up some sort of like listing or something where I could query on the prefabs, kind of like a query on the world, so I can say, hey, give me all the prefabs. That might be worthwhile doing, actually. Querying prefabs, much like the world. So I can just say, hey, yeah, let's get all of the prefabs that have a craft component, or all the prefabs that have a craft and whatever else component. That might be worthwhile doing. Start screen has 3 buttons going off to different menus. Option screen have settings for the sound for the load screen. That sounds like you could probably get away with doing a single but I don't know. I mean, yeah, you could probably just say like, oh hey, these are buttons that have these callbacks associated with it. Display all the buttons for the current menu that we're on. That's probably what I would do. Yeah. That sounds good. One sec. Going to sneeze. Okay, yeah, Sniper. One thing I think that schools and people teach, which is like they tell you it's a good thing, but it's actually a bad thing, is splitting up your code and refactoring it and trying to keep things as like units of code as simple as possible, where you have a function that does this one thing, and then oh hey, you wanted to do something else that goes along with that, well let's break that into another function and only have it be like 3 lines of code, but you only use it in that one place. Like I feel like that's something that they teach you to do that actively works against you most of the time. So like yeah, people will say, "Oh, you have these different menus. You should break them up into different classes or whatever because yeah, that it makes sense or something." But And this might not be the case for you. Maybe people would actually say, oh, you should put them all together. But like, if you're not going to be like, it is good to split things up sometimes, but it's also good to try to keep things together if they can be, and that's the only time you're going to use them. Like, it's okay to have a function that's 400 lines long if that's the only place you're using it. And if you want to like try to split it up some way to make it easier for you to read, you can always like put things within scopes or whatever, so that way you can or label it like say, oh yeah, this is doing this chunk of logic and then this is doing that, but still have it be all together something you could read through and understand. Yeah, I don't know. It's something that I was taught in school, and I have been trying to remove from my like I guess habits. Cool. So I think this makes sense here. We've put some actual good thought into how we're going to do all of this. So yeah, I want to like dig into 400 line function. No thanks. If you need to, I think it's fine. Why split it up if you're not calling that code anywhere else? Like, what's the advantage? What's the advantage of splitting up into 5 functions that are in different places or whatever? But it's just called sequentially. I don't think it's worth it. Because it's easier to read? Is it though? I think that's a lie that they often tell you. It's easier to read. And yeah, you can make the code unreadable if it's in 400 lines. You definitely can, but you can also make it very readable, I think. Because if you replace 100 lines of code with do something complex, does that really make it more readable? Disagree with that's easier to read. Yeah, because now suddenly, if you need to know what that do something complex is doing, you have to jump over to that code. And you have to read through that. Oh, and now there's another do something complex 2 line that you have to jump over to. And so now you're having to jump around all of the code, trying to figure out exactly what it's doing. And it's harder to create a mental mapping of how it's all working because the code is all around, and also it's easier to get something kind of out of order because it's abstracted away into this function. And so like one thing you can do to make it easier, I don't think I have any monolithic functions inside of here. Oh, actually I kind of do. In the render system, I have a pretty big function already, which is the submit layer. So what you can do if you want to is comment stuff. Say, hey, this is our render any vertices that we have queued or something like that. I don't know, like I normally don't add in comments, but hey, if you want to, you can, you know, basically use a comment as a function name, and then guess what? You can collapse that down, and now you can read it just like. And if you don't need a if statement, you can always put it inside of a scope here like this, and then you can collapse that down. And so, hey, this renders any vertices that we have queued, and then you can do the same. So you can basically make it look like how the how you would have it with the functions by using comments and collapsing down the code. But if you want to be able to read it linearly, you can, as it's actually running. Or even use a region. Oh yeah, region could work too. I'm not used to using that, but yeah. So yeah, like I guess my point is that I feel like it's a lie that people have, like teachers have taught us. Maybe it's easier to read if you're looking at some really simple code or something. You're like, oh yeah, it does this thing, but in practice, it's not actually better. That's what I have experienced. You know, I've been a developer for 10 years now. Worked at a software company for 3 years, and then I moved over to a doing indie game development for the last 7 years. So I would say I have a decent amount of experience working with code and fairly large code bases. Korea was over 100,000 lines of code, and the software company I worked at had like over 500,000 lines of code. So yeah, in my experience, it's definitely better to do stuff like this. So I haven't used that region before. Let me try that. Is it just like region, and then do you do like an end region here? End region? How does that work? The industry disagrees with you, I'm sorry to say. I mean, yeah, people have opinions, and that's fine. Everyone can have their own opinion. I'm if if it makes it easier for you to read the code, then it makes it easier for you to read. I can't dispute that. I am saying for myself personally, I have found that it's better to not split stuff up if you don't have to. It's easier for me. Region name. Okay, you have to give her a name. Gotcha. I've actually, yeah, okay, so it is in region. Pragma region name, Pragma in region comment. Gotcha. Yeah, I've never used that before. You have to do pragma region render vertices. Does it have to be? Oh, I guess it's comment name. The name will be displayed in the code editor. Let's try this. Well, can you not? Wait. Did I do that wrong? Maybe I have to render vertices. Aha, there we go. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, so I guess you could do that. Anyways, we'll just go in here and discard this. I have a habit of saving things when I don't really mean to. But yeah, I think everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and you know, if something works better for you, then it works better for you. I'm just saying that I think it's better for me to be able to read this stuff. So like, how many lines of code is that? It's about 400. But this is the only place that I'm ever rendering this code. It could definitely be cleaned up, I will admit that. And maybe it could be worthwhile refactoring some of it. I could see that. Because this code does repeat a number of things, and it's a little ugly. I'm not... Yeah. I could see this being cleaned up. But my point still stands, I think, that sometimes it's better to in my opinion. It's better to keep it in a big block. Yeah. Yep. So next up is to dig into exactly how we're going to use this soul, I think. Like pull it in and exposing stuff. And also looking at how we want to do the prefabs. So like exposing stuff, how are we going to expose stuff, and how are we going to actually like getting things into our like the templates and loading up all the prefabs and everything. Yeah. So that's next, but I actually need to get going. Sorry for kind of shorter stream, 2.5 hours. It's okay. Actually probably closer to 2. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll start digging into this and trying to figure out exactly how we're going to do those things, the templates with the prefabs and user interface and all that fun stuff. I never could use Soul 3. Well, you can come here tomorrow and figure out how we can set it up. It'll probably be a few days to get it all working. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. If you're not following already, feel free to follow. You can check out the VODs on YouTube. I do need to catch up on some of them. The ones that are not up on YouTube yet, you can find here on Twitch. You can see my schedule down below. I'll be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be picking this back up. Thanks, Kyle. I'll see you guys later. Have a good one and take care.